Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and welcome to a man who is sitting in Rochester, New York. It is an evening. He's got a very nicely darkly lit office, but it's a very cool looking office.
Thanks, man.
And he's sitting in front of a magnificent Australian invention, being the Rode microphone. He is the owner of Belleauwood Coaching LLC. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome to the podcast, Jon Sheldon. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Darren. How are you, man?
Very well, thank you. Very well. And we've just had a pretty good conversation before we started, talking about how many emails we get and how many of those emails are full of spam, and trying to get through to what's real and what's not. But also talking about politics. But we're not going to talk about politics on this podcast, are we? Because we made that promise.
This is going to be fun.
So I am actually literally looking forward to this. And for the listeners' benefit, we tried to organise this a few weeks ago, but there was a bit of a challenge on our respective calendars. I'd love to delve into your background, Jon, because you've got an interesting background and you've got a mix of financial services. You've been in sales. You're now running a very successful coaching enterprise. But you've also got a military background as well. So there's going to be lots of things we can draw out of your background that's going to hopefully help people listening to this with their own progress in their own careers, whether it be running sales teams or looking to run sales teams. I always like to start these discussions, though, with just a background question in terms of where did it all start for you? Now, you don't have to say I was born in this place. I grew up here. I did that. But your early career, some of the choices that you made, and maybe some of the serendipitous situations that led you to where you are today, and running the successful Belleauwood Coaching LLC.
Yeah. It probably did start. Probably did start in the Marines at some place when I transferred into corporate America, but we can definitely start with corporate America. I fell into financial planning. I just gotten out of the Marine Corps, and I'd gone to college. I didn't take any time off and just was working full time, going to college full time. I started my first class 10 days out when I got out of the military and just went full force. And I started with a couple different degrees and then landed in business management. And at the end of the day, one of my friends from high school I had run into accidentally, and he was had a couple of years into his financial planning career, was raving about it and said, "Hey man, you're in school. We have actually a terrific internship program. You should try it out. I think you'd be really good at it." And I was like, I have no interest in this at all. And like literally a couple of years later, a year later or so, I was like, you know what, let's take Nate up on this. And so I got an internship. I think he squeezed me in because I don't think I did almost any of the homework they told me to do. So I'm pretty sure some strings were pulled, but I brought that really that military mindset into it of kind of win. And so I always believe that as long as you had, and I still believe this today, as long as I had good morals, knew that what I was doing was true and good for people, that why wouldn't people want this? And that's really where I started my career in sales and financial planning, was starting with literally 22 people to call and was off to the races and said, "Hey, this is what I'm getting into. And, obviously you pass your tests and you're qualified to do this stuff, but we're doing good work for people. And I want to take you through this process." And one of the things that I'm grateful for now looking back at first I was absolutely panicking, was that you only have 20 people to call. Like, how can you build a business off this? But, to Nate's credit, he said, your main job right now is to get referrals.
Yeah.
Get people to do good enough work, talk about what we do enough to get people to refer you to other people. And from that standpoint, I was very good at that. I could passionately talk about stuff because I was passionate about it. I did believe in it. I still believe in the work that we did to this day, even though it's been a long time past now.
Yeah.
And that flowered into a pretty cool career that I didn't expect, and ended up, doing the internship, growing a financial team, then getting out of that and becoming the director of a region of sales, um and progressing through that financial planning world for about 14 years.
Mm.
Um and that was really, I'm really grateful for that, and for a lot of reasons. I wanted to get out of it, and obviously I did, and gone more into the development and coaching space, which is what I do now. But I learned, it's always a good exercise, or maybe not a great one, but to look back and say like, oh, could I have done that sooner?
Yeah.
Right. Right when I got out of the Marines was that the point in time when I should have like really progressed in this coaching and development space. And I can categorically say that no at this point
Yeah.
in time, right? The amount of connections alone that I made over a 14-year career in financial planning, I would not have the practice that I have today without those. And I know that for
Yeah.
a fact. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's almost like looking back and saying, well, everything's happened for a reason. And maybe
mhm,
there was a season of my career or season of my life that I had to go through and learn some lessons that would set me up for what was to come in the future. And
absolutely.
I think Jim Rohn was really famous for saying,
Cool.
don't live your life with regrets, and don't necessarily regret the things that you did. And if anything, people would have regrets on what they didn't do. But looking
Mhm.
back and saying, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, but I didn't, you know what? It's part of your chapter of your life story. So it's worked exactly how it's meant to.
Yeah, I agree. And even staying in it as long, when I switched over into that directorship, I've looked back and said, well, I could have left and just done it then. I was already coaching financial advisors at that point in time. I could have done that. And again, the connections that I made over those next 8 years as the director, are essential for the work that I do now, and the relationships that I've built. So I'm just
Yeah.
very grateful for it.
So let me talk to you about sales. You mentioned before that you had 22 people to call. All right. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming it's like, well, who write down all the people you know and let's just reach out and say, hey, this
Yeah,
is what I'm
basically.
doing, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And this is what happens when people get made redundant, when they're starting a new business. It's always like start with your friends and family, and
Yeah.
just and not to say I'm going to sell you stuff, but it's just to make them aware. And part of it's the grounding in terms of your messaging and your communication.
Yeah.
If you look back on that, what are some of the key lessons that you learned from that process? Obviously, you would have gone through the 22. And when
Mm.
Nate said, "Hey, you need to now start focusing on getting referrals," what were some of the key lessons that you learned from that phase?
Yeah, great question. I talk about this a lot with clients and other sales professionals, and something I'm a deep believer in is that getting a referral is so much harder, in my opinion, than getting a sale. Anybody can look at what you're offering and say, "Oh, I do need that."
Mm,
It takes a different level, and the way I describe it is if you were going out to a restaurant and you were gonna refer that restaurant. Say your friend comes and asks you, say, "Hey, what restaurant should I go take my significant other to?" If you went to a restaurant and you got a great meal, but it was terrible service, you're not recommending that restaurant, right?
yeah,
You came for the
absolutely.
meal, got the product that you were looking for, but you're not going to recommend that product to somebody else
Mm,
because the service sucked. Same thing on the opposite side. Great service, terrible food. You're never going to recommend that place. You're going to recommend the place that both things existed.
mm,
You had a great product and there was a great experience. And I think that when my friend told me back in the day to focus on getting referrals, I intuitively knew what that meant of like, how do I how do I get this? Like how if I focus on that, which requires a good product and a great experience, they will give me referrals. And it just so happens that if you do those two things, most people want to work with you. Right.
yes, it's funny
And
about that.
so the trick actually for my success early on in sales, actually in the financial planning world, was not actually to focus on sales at all, was to focus on what product am I delivering? How do I communicate it? And what experience am I giving the client? And then the magic thing at the very end that everybody hates doing, you got to ask for them. Right. So it was a big piece of it for me. I would hyper focus in on it, and that would be what I would like. That would be my goal of this successful meeting. Would be: did I solve their issue? Did I create a good experience? If so, then I'm going to get permission essentially to talk to them about referrals and their networking. And beyond that, like that's really where it came from. And every, you know what, and at least in the world I was in, it seemed like every problem that you truly had was kind of solved by getting more referrals. So you're having a bad week, well, go get more referrals. And if you were
Yeah,
good at that, you could you could kind of thrive, you know? And
yeah.
so that was what my focus was almost solely on for the first 18 months of my professional career.
And when you look back on that, focusing on that for 18 months and the experience you created, if you fast forward now to what you do, I'm sure the large percentage of your business is people who have had a great experience with you, and there's this transfer of trust that happens. Because when you're describing the restaurant,
Absolutely.
if you have a great experience and a great meal, then you want to recommend that to somebody who is near and dear to you, who you respect and who you
Yes.
trust, and you want them to have the same experience. And if they don't, then you feel somehow responsible for that because you've recommended them to it, right? And that's why a lot of people
Yeah.
think, well, referrals are really difficult. And that's why I say all the time in sales that sales is two things. One is the ultimate form of service, because it's all about
Mm.
servitude and solving problems. And
Agreed.
the second thing is that the sale really doesn't begin until after the sale is made, which fits beautifully into what you do in terms of your referral process. That in
Hmm.
order to get the referrals, you've got to create a fantastic experience and service to the person who you're providing that product or that service, that solution to the point where they say, you know what? Who do I know in my network? And you may even not even have to ask them, but they're thinking,
Yeah.
who do I know in my network who I need to introduce to John because I want them to have what I've got.
Yeah. And that was always like the biggest form. I love that you brought that up. It was always like the biggest form of compliment when you'd meet with a client for like a financial planning review, whether it was quarterly, annually, six, whatever the agreement was. And whenever they would come with somebody and say, "Oh, by the way, before we get started, I was talking to my friend Joe. You got to reach out to him."
Yeah.
It's like,
Okay.
okay, thank you, but yeah, and that's always so gratifying. But you're 100% correct. Of it's so much harder to get it because it requires after that sale. Like you said, the sale begins afterwards. I've never worded it like that, but I feel 100% connected with that.
So on the flip side of that, I'd love you to talk a little bit about because in certainly in Australia, the financial services industry and mortgage brokers, financial planners,
Mm.
they're starting to build more and more of a credible reputation. But it's probably like a lot of industries where back in the day it probably wasn't held in high esteem.
Yeah.
Talk about like any challenges you may have had to have gone through, particularly in the early days where there might have been either direct or implied pressure to get a client over the line, right? Because we had to get numbers, we had
Hmm.
to get annuity
Yep.
business, we had to get trailing commissions.
Yep.
And I guess the thought process or strategy that you used to continue to maintain that focus of service referrals, despite maybe having to also deal with the pressure that may have been placed upon you to get the numbers and get the conversions. How did you manage that?
Man, that's an excellent question that dives into the not so great underbelly of finance, right? Luckily, I'm no longer part of that world, so I can speak probably more honestly about that now. But yeah, that's the look. I'll say this: the number one thing when people ask me, like, "Hey, how do I choose a financial advisor?" Uh, the number one thing I tell them is ask them how they're paid. Right? How are they paid? What's their structure? It's the number one thing you should know, like
Yeah.
when you're interviewing them. And I think that's first and foremost. I think navigating, and that's why I led Darren with that first line of as long as you're doing high moral work. And that is very muddied in that world. And I'll 100% say that out loud, right? There
Yeah.
have been times where you're making calls to potential clients and you're looking at the calendar and you're having those exact same message or same conversations with the person that is literally like you're in their office and they're like, hey, you're going to get three more clients by the end of this month, and you're like, I don't know, but you know and and it's this constant thing that I remember this really good conversation I had with one of my best friends that we came up in the business together, and we're probably about right about that 18-month mark. And we had this sit down over a beer and we're like, are we doing the right thing? Like, we need to gut check ourselves. And we both took like a week and went through our entire planning process and really bought
Yeah.
into, no, we are, and we're bringing something good to the world. And again, these contests, and they were contests, these contests that we are kind of going over, like as long as the client's um, welfare is first and foremost before I get to go to Aruba, that's that's the main thing. But it is this very delicate, and it's something that I don't think a lot of people know about the financial planning industry, at least in America, is there's a lot of this behind the scenes. Um and I think that most companies do have a good insight into, they believe they're doing really good work, and they have
Mm.
to, and they're always saying, making sure they're focusing in on it. But that's where the sales contest and that aspect of, I think it gets a little easier, Darren, when you believe that you're running your own business, right?
Yeah.
When you truly believe, like, hey, I have to build this thing for me, and this is a client base. I'm the master of my own world. I think that becomes an easier sell in your own brain of like, hey, you're not buying this company that I'm kind of contracted with. You're
Yeah.
really buying the work that we're doing. But navigating that, I think, is really tough, because you are doing something, like, call what it is. Financial professionals, if they're doing it right, have a massive responsibility.
Oh yeah,
You're talking
absolutely.
about, right. You're talking about, like, I work with a lot of financial advisors now, and one of the things I'll challenge them on is, you have to, like, take this as the most serious thing, because that 65-year-old is giving you every dollar that they've worked their entire life for, and trusting that you're doing good moral decisions. So you better be doing good moral work, you
Mm.
know? And I think what got me through it, because I have always been a high moral person. I did get that from the Marines, this deep level of purpose, of service to something bigger than myself. I would constantly call that into question
Yeah.
and make sure that I was always, in least in my opinion, doing the right work for the clients that entrusted me with. But there is a there is a dichotomy when you're selling a service like that, which is an ongoing service, versus maybe just a product,
Yeah.
right? Not, and I don't mean just a product like that's lesser than. It's just then a standalone product where they think they need it, you think they need it, boom, you're done. This is a long-term thing where they're giving you every dollar that they make. And I think having a good moral compass is the key to all sales, really, but especially in that world, like you brought up, because you're right. Companies have benchmarks, and
Yeah.
you are judged on those. And I don't think many clients know or understand that.
No, but if you can be transparent, and certainly when you're asked the question from a potential client on how do you get remunerated, and you can say,
Yep.
hey, I get remunerated based on doing the best thing for you. So if you win, I win, and it's just a little
Yep.
clip of the ticket. I think most people are more than happy to accept that if they're dealing with an expert who has their clients'
Yep.
best interest at the corner of at the center of what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and that's why I always get frustrated with that industry specifically, when new regulations come out, that really test their ability to be a good financial advisor. And you um, hear a lot of financial advisors grumble and complain of, like, well, it's like, well, uh, shouldn't you be doing this anyways? Like, what? Why are you so concerned with this, bro? Like,
Well, if you're doing the right thing by your clients, then you shouldn't be concerned about
exactly my point.
the
Yeah.
new regulations that are coming out because you're doing what's ethical.
Yep.
So I'd love to, because the other thing you mentioned there is it might be a little bit different when you're actually selling a service or a package that may have longevity with the relationship. It's interesting the number of teams that I speak to that often are in industries where it's more transactional. And
Yeah.
the attitude they have is it's literally that. It's transactional. It's a slam bam, thank you, ma'am, on to the next customer.
Yeah.
But I would also contend that there are huge opportunities to still be of great service. It's like the restaurant analogy you gave before,
Yep.
that some of the best salespeople I've come across are in new car sales, they're in retail sales, they're in real estate, because whilst there might be a transaction, the experience they create and the service they provide post the transaction shows that they genuinely care, and that leads them to having a great network of referrals that keeps coming in time and time again. So it's just an underlying principle I think that stands the test of time.
I agree, and I think that's lost, especially on. I think it does get lost a little bit with when sales professionals, especially in the beginning of their career, think of it more like a one done. I got to pay my mortgage type of thing. Um, when in reality, let's go back to let's go to the car salesman thing. Like if I have a great experience with a car salesman and a company that I'm working with, I'm most likely next time I need a car or my wife needs a car or my friend needs a car, I'm going back there.
Mm,
I don't want to go work with somebody else. I'm going to text this dude and say, "Hey, like when's the next, good sale or when's the next good deal or when are you guys coming out with 0%, financing or whatever." Um, and I think to your point, it's really dangerous to lose focus in on that.
mm,
One of the things that they used to tell us in financial planning, to go back to that real quick, is that a client on average will buy from you 7 times throughout your relationship. Going into car sales, I've had probably 7 cars already in my life, and I'm 39.
yeah,
It's like, and if I had a really good car guy right now, which the one I did have retired, I bought 3 vehicles from him to prove
yeah,
your point,
yeah,
and so did
yeah,
my wife.
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, if he offered me just this generic service, never followed, and what he was really great at? His name was Jim. He was really great at checking in with me, which I never had before with a car sales guy. He would shoot me a text like a year later and be like, "Hey, dude, how's the Colorado doing?"
yeah,
Like, dude, it's great. Thanks for asking. You know,
yeah.
and that was it. But it was always like you're on my mind, and I think that's really valuable, right? It's like, dude, I had a great experience with Jim.
It's such a simple thing, but it's so profound because we always talk
Yeah.
about, and you would know this in even in the coaching business, that it's the likability factor. It's you remaining
Yep.
top of mind in the people, and it's just to check in, and it has to be a genuine check in. It's not just checking in to see whether you're ready to buy another car or you're ready to buy
No.
another package of coaching. It's a case of how are you going, right? It could be
Yep.
an anniversary. It could be your sporting team has just had a good win. You think, oh, I know he's the I don't know. Are you the Patriots?
No. No. We're the Bills.
Okay, you're the Bills. So how the Bills cracking, and it's just little things like that because people
Yep.
love to do business with the people that they know, like, trust, and remember. So
Yep.
just by doing those sort of things, it's the smallest price you can pay to start to build that, I guess, that pillar of referrals or potential referrals.
You're nailing it, man. Absolutely. Doesn't surprise me as you run a exceptional sales leader, right? Um, this is stuff that I talk about all the time with my clients, well, especially the ones that are in sales, when we're going over what I call client experience. Like, do not, just like you mentioned, do not just call your client and ask a half-hearted question and then say, "So we have this." No, 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 no. Be authentic.
Mm,
Send them a text, reach out to them. If you notice something on social, it's like so easy nowadays too, Darren, with
yeah,
social media. You can stay so involved in your clients' lives
yeah,
and send them authentic things. Oh, you just got married. Hey, you just had you had your first child. Like, send them a text.
yeah.
Sometimes that's the only thing that they're really looking for, right? Instead of, oh, it's been 6 months since your last renewal. You ready? Then you're just going to be viewed as that guy. And you mentioned something that I preach to everybody. People do business with people they like.
Yes,
Be
I
likable.
do. And that's it. And it doesn't mean that people have to like you. There has to be something in common with you that they resonate with you, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So what's the commonality? Um, I'd want to delve into a little bit of your background in terms of your military career and
Cool. Let's do it.
some of the key lessons that you've learnt around discipline, service, and also structure. Because what I see in a lot of
Mm.
business people today is not a huge amounts of structure, or structures continue to change because there's this new process that's been introduced, or we've got this new CRM that's just been introduced. So we're going to change everything, and it's going to change the world. If you look back on your military career, what were some of the key lessons? Because you're a squad leader, so you would have had some sort of leadership training as part of that process.
Yes.
When you think about leadership, and how you've taken it through your financial services career now into your coaching career, what are some of the key leadership lessons that you have learnt that's helped you become, first of all, a better leader, but in turn has helped you be able to pass that forward onto clients and help others become better leaders and better role models?
Yeah. Excellent question. The number one lesson I learned is that leadership isn't one size fits all. You have to start with how you want to show up as a leader. And we can pull examples from other people for sure, but most young leaders specifically don't take the time to understand what type of leader they want to become and what they really respect in leaders. Um, and the next thing is that leadership at a very base, is not about you. And I think that is the number one thing that you, as a leader, you have to recognize and have to accept, that it's not about you anymore. It's about your people. And their result is a direct reflection of potentially your influence in your leadership. And that is the reward that you get. It's
Mhm.
not in the personal accolades, it's in what you're able to create and influence through others under your care. And what I always use it as example, and I always call myself out here, I'm not a tall man, Darren. And so and I was surrounded by, I actually joke with all my friends all the time. I'm by far the shortest of my friends. All of my friends are into the 6 feet, like,
Okay.
and I'm not. And so I joke with them, all the time. Like, how did you not see this bald spot and tell me about it years ago? Like, I can't see it. But but at the same time, it's also very true. In the Marine Corps, it's a very physical space. I was in the grunt, so I was a Marine Corps infantry squad leader. And I was surrounded by very aggressive, very large 19-year-old, 20-year-old dudes that were all Marines, very tough.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I had to come to grips with very, very quickly in my leadership journey was, you can't this thought process that you see in the movies of military leadership is always this very loud, aggressive, yelling. That's not really how it is. At least that's not how the best leaders lead.
Yeah.
The best leaders lead by getting to know their people, getting to know what makes them tick, and getting to know what actually gets them influence and how they perform at their best, and making sure they're putting them in as many situations like that as they can possibly get. And that is what gets you and garners you respect. And when the challenges come, that's where you're going to see that your people show up for you,
Mm.
right? When they're going to perform for you. And it's easier to have the hard conversations with them because you've shown up for them and you've shown them that level of empathy and that level of understanding. That doesn't mean that we have to go so far in this empathy version of leadership where, we're not tough, we're not direct, we don't have tact, right? We're not tough. Sorry, I already mentioned tough. My bad. Um, it doesn't mean that, but it does mean that we have to know our people. And
Mm.
when I start working with young leaders in the world that I'm in now, that's the one thing that they generally skip over,
Yeah.
is they never get enough time with their people to understand how they actually tick.
Yeah.
And what I learned through discipline and structure in the Marines, and one of the biggest lessons that I had to learn, unfortunately, my guys had to learn too, was sometimes you only get one shot at this.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you have that actual pressure of this might be the last time you do this,
Hmm.
everything seems to matter quite a bit more. And it's not this, well, I'll try this one out and see if it works. No, it's like, no, you kind of got to figure this out. Um, and how to get people to move and react and be influenced and listen in the hard times when you've been up for 3 days and you got to stand post after you just got done with a patrol and maybe lost a friend. That's tough.
Mm.
And ignoring that is what bad leaders do. Just saying, get over it, move on. Let's pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Like, yeah, all that stuff's really great. And there's this toughness that you need to have. Absolutely. But if we don't recognize what we need to take out of it and be there for your people, and not the other way around, not, hey, my people exist to help me. No, you exist to benefit your people. And in that way, you are a cohesive unit. It doesn't mean you don't
Yeah.
lose control of the situation.
Yeah.
So those are the two things that I think I really got out of it, as far as the leadership journey is concerned, is you got to know your people. You got to put them first.
So I fully agree with that, right? And that's a philosophy that I've used all through my sales career, and it's certainly what I do now when I'm teaching leadership and working with leaders in a coaching or a mentoring capacity. The obvious question to follow that up, though, John, is why does that seem to be the exception to the rule in business today? Maybe not the military, or there might be elements of the military that still have a command and control, but based on your experience and the clients that you work with and the interactions you have, why do
Yeah.
you suspect that it's still the exception to the rule. Because it to me, I don't know, and it might be the same for you. It just sounds logical that as a leader, you're there to be responsible and take care of your people. And if you do that,
Mm.
then you're in a good position to maybe being taken care of by them. But you don't do it so you can get taken care of. You do it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. And maybe I answered this the wrong way, so correct me and cut me off if I have. But in my experience thus far in the corporate world, not only as a coach but also living in that world for a long time, generally speaking, the people that are promoted to leadership are not natural leaders. They're generally speaking the people that have sold the most, right? Stuck around the no, it's true. Stuck around the longest, right?
That's why I'm smiling and laughing.
Yeah. And so we're not starting at this like basis of like natural born leadership, right? We're starting at this and think about it what it takes. And I mean this wholeheartedly because I was this guy at one point in time too. Is think of it what it takes to be like a national renowned sales leader, right? Generally speaking, you are vastly motivated by recognition, right? By accolades. You've been taught that for the last 30 years. You
Mm,
might be very money driven. I don't think any of these things are bad. I don't think that at all. I don't think that at all. But they are the opposite of what you need to be a leader. So what you find out is this, Darren, and this is this you do a great job in sales, you've done it for the last 25 years, and you say, you know what? I think it's time to spend a little bit more time with my family. I don't want to be on the road as much, and I'm going to go in the directorship level.
yeah,
And that's your leadership journey, right? And
yeah,
all of a sudden you tell your company, the company's like, well, why wouldn't we? He's been the top sales leader for the last 15 years. He wants to step in. What a what a gift to us, right? And then you realize that then you realize you just promoted somebody that spent the last 15 to 20 years or 10 years or however long it's been focusing on them and what they need.
yeah,
Right now, I'm not saying that they're bad or they're doing a bad job at their clients or not leading their clients, but when you have to transfer that over to putting yourself second, that's where I find most of the hiccups, and that's where I find the real roadblocks for modern day leaders, at least in sales organizations. Right? They either stuck around long enough or they've been good enough long enough where like, hey, we need to teach other people. And really, what you're promoting, and I'll end it with this. Sorry, what the company wants is a sales manager,
yeah,
right? Which is a different skill set than leadership. Those two
yeah,
things, I think Jocko Willink said this very beautifully. You lead people and you manage things.
yeah,
And I think that's 100% true, but those things get super muddy when you start promoting the wrong person.
yeah. And you're so right. And the reason I was laughing and chuckling is because I've spent years when I was in corporate, I saw people get promoted to what I think was a high level of incompetence. And when you have conversations with directors and directors of HR and say, like, what is the methodology? What is the principles? What are the processes we should be going through to identify talent? And
Yep.
specifically, what are the characteristics that we look for and need to have in positions of influence, such as sales manager, sales director, sales leader? And almost without exception, it came back to two things: high potential and high performance. If one of those two things were missing, the people were completely discarded, right? And
Yep.
my own experience, there were people who perhaps weren't necessarily top salespeople, but they were phenomenal humans who
Yep.
would have people who would just fall over themselves to want to be in their presence because of how they made them feel, would never get the opportunity because their sales numbers were not at the level that was expected of them, and therefore they never got the opportunity. So I sit back and I now wonder how many great leaders have we missed out on in sales, in business, in the world because others placed a expectation that you need to fit a couple of criteria, and if you don't, sorry.
Yeah, and I think that's a piece of it. And I'm sure you've heard this a bunch. I have too in my career of, you'll get a person that some salesperson or some, other workers is like, well, you know what they say, if you can't do, then you teach, right? It's like, well, all right, but maybe this person is just made for this. Maybe that's what their gift is to this world, right? Just because they're not the best salesperson like you are, doesn't mean that they don't have the skill set that can move people to action.
Yeah.
that can influence, right?
Yeah.
And I always laugh at that and I chuckle and it's like, okay, like, yeah, I'm sure that's the reason for some, right? I'm sure it is, right? There's always people like that, but it's this like kind of like, oh, I did more than you type of thing. It's like, okay, because that's your job,
Yeah,
that's your
that's
skill
exactly
set,
right. That's what we
right?
pay you for.
Yeah, right, right. Congratulations, right?
Yeah, oh
Um,
man, it's
but yeah,
and
man,
it
you're nailing it.
and it's funny. It's as you were talking, the thing that popped into my head was professional sporting coaches of any and in Australia the game here is Australian rules football, right? So
Mhm.
there's a lot of we've got only got 18 teams in the Australian Football League, which is the most elite competition.
Cool.
And a lot of the coaches of those teams are ex-players. There's only one coach that has never played the game at the highest level, but he's also the coach that has led his team to the last two championships or last two premierships in the last 2 years. So as you were talking, I'm thinking, okay, you could be a fantastic salesperson, a fantastic individual contributor, but it doesn't automatically translate into you being a fantastic leader or coach
Nope.
of people. And so this is why the message that I want to keep putting out to people is when it comes to leadership, when it comes to the future of your business and the future of your company, is look for the specific characteristics that you need in that position. Don't just
Yes.
look at is this person at the top of the tree in terms of their performance, because some of the best performers are also some of the worst leaders, and you don't want them to lead your team.
Yes. You nailed it, man. Absolutely. Look at characteristics, look at psychographics, give them real examples of like what would you do in this situation when dealing with somebody instead of just, hey man, let's lead a team now. You know,
Yeah.
man, I preach.
Yeah, mate, no conversation around leadership, sales, coaching, mentoring would be complete without at least touching this thing called mindset and motivation. So,
Mm,
um, and I know that with your background in the Marine Corps, mindset would have been a huge thing. You
yes.
mentioned before having to be awake and on patrol for 3 days straight without sleep, but and they obviously teach you that to be an effective decision maker under fatigue and so forth. Can you just talk a little bit about the importance of mindset from your own experience and how that's helped you in your career, but also any specific I don't know, tips or strategies or techniques that you help clients with in relation to this mindset?
Yeah, yeah, great question, man. You know, one of the things that really helped me early on in sales was in my career, I took directly from the Marine Corps, and I teach this all the time too. It's the worst somebody says is no. And I took that into my professional life very profoundly. You know, it's like, and I used to tell people like, I've got, you know, call reluctance. You know, it's very, very common with young salespeople, as you know.
Yeah.
And it's like the worst they can say is no. Like you're not getting shot at. You're you know, you're not doing all these things. Your life is not on the line. The worst they can say is no. And I think as most people don't have that experience, it's hard to relate to a little bit. But when you start putting life more in perspective of like what's actually at stake here, usually, especially again in sales, the path forward is more or better,
Mm,
not necessarily retracting or retreating. You know, and so I think there's this thing in the Marines where you practice, what we're just going to call it ambush right. And in the Marine Corps, one of the really interesting things, this goes into mindset and really, really crazy way. If you get, if they teach you, if you get ambushed, right, from left, right, forward, whatever, instead of maneuvering around, you literally charge in that direction. Psychologically, that really damages the enemy because what sane person would ever do that, right?
it's like the
But
buffalo heading to the storm into the storm.
right, exactly, right? And you can work that in your professional life is the way out is through,
Mm,
right? The way, and that I think is a mindset shift for a lot of people. It's like, no, no, man. And that's why I love, you know, that Marcus Aurelius famously wrote in Meditations, you know, whatever stands in the way then becomes the way. And Ryan Holiday wrote a great book after that, The Obstacle is the Way. Um, that's so true though. And
Mm,
that's what really builds into mindset. And what I definitely took from the military was the way out is through. And so when you run into an obstacle, understand, don't view it as this like big thing to overcome. It's something to manage and attack, and in that way you start finding solutions and building confidence, because truthfully at the end of the day, what what you need to get through mindset is confidence. And you
mm.
get confidence from experience. You get confidence from getting your teeth kicked in. You get confidence from getting said no to a bunch of times. Like my favorite game to play with young salespeople is the no game. Stop counting how many yeses you get. It's just like get 20 no's today. Get 20 people to hang up on you, right? Like, no, seriously, like, make it a game, make it a little bit of a game. Like have like lessen the effect of what you're actually trying to accomplish by playing
Yeah,
the exact opposite game and just flipping that mindset. And what happens is you get said no to so many times that you start to realize that it really didn't matter.
yeah,
The no
yeah,
was always a no.
yeah.
You just needed to go find it.
That's it. That's it. And it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's almost like a bit of stoicism, isn't it? That
Yeah.
it's and they're not when people are saying no, they're not actually saying no to you.
No.
They're often saying no to themselves.
Yeah.
Um,
There-
and
yeah.
my
Yeah.
my role as a salesperson, and certainly when I'm as in a sales leadership role, my role is to help my salespeople go and talk to as many people as possible, continue to be of service, do things ethically and morally, and all that sort of stuff, and be a person that's going to be providing value. But know that not everybody's going to be a fit for your
No.
product or your service or your solution. Your job is to go and find out who has the problem that needs to be solved, that wants to be
Yep.
solved. That's it, right? So you're going to have to go through a process of no's. It's just part of the
Yep.
game.
It is just a part of the game. And that's where
Yeah.
that word you mentioned, motivation, comes in too. Of right, is we all, I think, especially nowadays, at least from on my, on my feeds, it's a lot of discipline talk, discipline talk, discipline talk. And discipline is very good and extremely helpful and is the ideal. You want to be most people want to be some sort of structured, disciplined person, right? You can't get that without a deep sense. And this is what I've come to realize, because I used to hate that word motivation, man. Like I got out of the Marines and it's all rah, rah, whatever. And it's like, yeah, yeah. And then you realize you're like, oh, kind of disenfranchised a little bit from that. And then you take a break from it. And then you realize in order to jumpstart discipline, you need at least 60 days of motivation.
Mm.
And finding out what truly motivates you. And this goes back to another conversation we had about leadership, right? Finding out what motivates you and what motivates your people truthfully is the only way to start doing that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, if it's materialistic, whatever, it's finding something that's deeper, finding that deeper motivation that you can actually turn into a ritual. Because
Mm.
putting a dollar amount of something on, or hey, I want to go, I'm motivated to buy this boat, you know, that's great. If you have a really good quarter, now you got to find something new, right? So
That's
it's
right.
right. So that doesn't necessarily work, right? We got to find what actually motivates us internally, not just the monetary stuff. Like what actually motivates us internally that is going to develop into discipline, and discipline equals confidence and getting said no to, and having successes. Obviously like this basic advice, but we do really do learn so much more from your failures. You learn so much more from the no's,
Oh,
you
absolutely.
know?
Absolutely. And it's just if people actually understand it's a process and a program that you have to go through. And John Maxwell talks about it perfectly. He said there is no success without failure. In fact, they're not the opposite of each other. They're intrinsically linked
The code
because
list. Yep.
from every failure, there's an opportunity or a seed of an opportunity to take something from it to move forward and to progress. So it's just coming back on the motivation phase. It's fascinating for me. And I love your thoughts because you work with a lot of leaders and businesses. When you ask leaders, or when I ask leaders, what do you know about your team in terms of what drives them to work here? So I ask the direct question, why do they choose to work in this company? And why do they choose to work for you? And why do they choose to come back every single day? Now, when I ask that question, guess what I get as a general response?
Because you pay them. I don't know.
Well, it's like, huh? I've got to ask
No
that.
idea.
I,
Yeah.
I, like, mate, like simple things like, no idea whether they've got kids. If they've got kids, don't even know what the kids' names are. don't know whether they're married, don't know what their hobbies are, don't know what their favorite restaurants are, like all simple stuff.
Yeah, that's
And I
crazy.
say, how can you possibly lead people when you don't know the first thing about the people who you are entrusted to care for and look after? And
Yep.
I say to them, you guys sit there and with the greatest amount of respect, you put all these bloody beautiful um, holiday packages together and competitions and league ladders and sales incentives, and you think, well, all the extrinsic, external, wow, let's go to Aruba or let's go to Hawaii. But if you sat down and actually analysed it and took the time to ask your people, here's what I'll tell you is what's going to happen. A very high percentage of them are not motivated by going to Aruba, right?
Nope.
Because if they're married, they don't get to take their partner. So the
Yep.
sacrifice of them to achieve that is probably going to be time away from their family in order to get that. And you think that's going to drive performance. Shame on you, my friend. Shame on you.
Yeah.
So, I get on my high horse sometimes with this because what I do know to be true is that exceptional sales leaders and exceptional leaders, full stop, who lead high performing teams, build a relationship so tight with their people that their people will literally never leave them
Yep.
because of how their leader makes them feel in that
Yes.
organization. They still drive high performance and high standards, but they go through the peaks and troughs together because they
Yep.
know what intrinsically motivates their people.
And everybody wants the leader that's filling the sandbags with them.
Mm,
Everybody wants the leader that they truthfully, they want the leader that's not like, oh, hey, by the way, your numbers are down. Better pick those up.
yeah,
They want the guy that's going to be in there with them doing it, like you just said, going through the peaks and troughs with them. And that word feel, I think, is so powerful that we use all the time, right? We know this basic fact, people buy an emotion and keep on logic, right? But we
yeah,
don't do that same thing for our salespeople. We have no emotional connection to them,
no.
and it's like, well, what makes us different here, right? Like, yeah, man, yeah, it's great.
And the other thing, just to add to that, is often, and you mentioned it before, that I've been a fantastic salesperson for 15 years. I don't want to do all this traveling, so I'll go into a directorship. And then I've arrived, but then I get a corner office. Maybe I get a real plant, not a rubber plant. Maybe I have a window in the corner. Maybe I've got a car park closer to the lift, right?
Yeah,
But then I spend most of my time sitting behind a computer or most of my time navel gazing with my senior executives and managing upwards that I don't spend time with the people who I'm there to care for. So,
yep,
so what happens is you start to create dysfunction within a team.
yep,
Now
yep,
that doesn't always happen, but that's I mean it's a gross generalization, I know, but the message there is if you're going to be a leader, you're there for your people, as you said so well before. You're there to serve your team. They're not there to serve you.
yep, yep, absolutely, man.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you is working with businesses, working with salespeople, senior leaders, turning them into helping them turn into CEOs and extract exceptional performance. With all the stuff, and we're not going to talk about politics, but with all the stuff happening macroeconomically, and when I talk about macroeconomics, I include things like the proliferation of AI into all of our worlds.
Yeah,
What are some of the things that you're grappling with your clients in terms of leadership, connections? Because what I'm seeing a lot is AI coming into and trying to infiltrate every sort of corner of a sales process, sales organizations, and
yeah,
there's a tendency to be giving over things to the AI and losing a little bit of the connection, or at least in danger of losing some of the connection. Um, what are you seeing, but also what sort of guidance, counsel, conversations are you having in relation to, I guess, the integration of all the technology and some of the macroeconomic challenges that we're seeing around the world?
great question. Um, I view it's a great topic. I view AI like we shouldn't be handing off. We should be incorporating. So like think of it more like you're a cyborg, right? Like you gotta accept that it's here, and I do not believe it's going anywhere, and understand how to use it, not fight it, and make sure that you're keeping the human element. I criticize, and I'll be very straightforward. You reached out to me today on LinkedIn, or maybe it was last night, and said,
Yeah.
"Hey, before our conversation, we'd love to connect," right? And one of my biggest criticisms about LinkedIn specifically, to be honest, is that from my perception, for a lot of the people that I'm looking at on LinkedIn, it's a lot of AI posts that they've taken almost zero time creating, responded to by a bunch of AI responses that have not been actually created by a human being. And so this form of activity of people talking to each other
Mm.
is weirdly disappearing.
Yeah.
And that I think is a massive issue right there. Because I can easily spot an AI post now. And if somebody sends me an AI, just boom, here's an AI message, here's my process, here's my sales, I don't read them anymore. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I just don't. It's like if I don't sense even 20% of this was a human derived interaction, I'm not interested. And that's just my take on it because I value that. I want to do business with a person. If you want to help your business and use AI to enhance your service for the client and then enhance your ability to run your business, I'm all for it. But and if you want to help have AI absolutely help you write stuff, like it's very, very useful, but you better at least put 40% in. It
Yeah,
better be at
that's right.
least 50, right? It better be at least 50% you. And I think we're really, and they're actually, I read a crazy study, I think a month ago, Darren. And basically it said that Gen Z is the first generation that's scoring worse on exams than any of its prior generations. And the reason for that is they're not thinking for themselves
Mm.
anymore.
Mm.
And that I find incredibly disturbing.
Yeah.
And where I've been I was a very early adopter of AI. I think it's helped me in my practice quite a bit. Automations have helped quite a bit, but I stick to this rule of at least 50% of that has to be me.
Yeah.
And and as far as socioeconomic is concerned, I find it challenging, and I'm really interested to see how everything goes. Like I think one of the most booming industries probably like is the AI industry, right?
Yeah.
I mean, hell, if I had to start over and they're like, "Hey, you have this chance to go into AI sales," I'd be like, "Probably sure, sign me up." Right? It sounds like .com sales in the '90s, right?
Yeah.
Um, but and that's a reality. But at the same time, it's like I think we have to make sure that we're keeping the human piece of this alive because when you get on with a client and you're engaging with them, they want to talk. They want to be efficient, which I think
Mm.
AI is incredibly good at being, like having an efficient process,
Yeah.
but they want to speak to a human.
Yes.
They still do. And so make sure that you keep that's what I would say is like keep the human part about being human. And that's
Mm.
interaction. There's a reason that we are not the majority of the population of the world is not nomadic anymore. There's
Yeah.
a reason that we settled in cities. There's a reason that New York exists and it's almost up to 9 million people because
Yeah.
we want human interaction.
Yeah.
That is something that is deeply human about us is other human interaction. And
Mm.
so I find it sorry to go on a rant there, but I find it equally as exciting as a warning of making sure that you're keeping the human connection inside of who you are. Use AI as a tool to help you, not in replace of you. And
Yeah.
I think that's a line that's commonly crossed over too much.
I think you're spot on, and one of the things I talk to sales teams all about is by all means incorporate AI into your creation of proposals, but don't go
Yep.
to an AI engine and say, "Hey, write me a proposal for John
Yes.
on this particular product," and go, right? You've got to think about it because at some stage in John's buying process, he's going to want to have a conversation with you, fire questions at you, which you cannot in front of him plug it into an AI engine and give an answer. You've got to think for yourself. So it's got to be
Yep.
your work, right? So by all means, use the AI to refine it. It might be
Yep.
able to articulate a message nicer, more elegantly than you naturally do. But you've got to feed into it. What are the key core components? What's the key messaging? What are the themes? What's the wind
Yep.
theme? All of that sort of stuff. So it's got to be your work. And interesting, you mentioned the human connection. It's fascinating the number of people I have spoken to over the last couple of years who have either done research in AI as it relates to sales leadership and B2B sales, or are in entrepreneurial roles where they're building AI engines to support sales efforts, to support sales leaders. And they all say the same thing, that the human to human connection will never go away because at the end of the day, people want to do business with human beings, right?
Mhm.
Now, the day that arrives where it's all just done by machines and robots is the day that society probably is going to completely break down. And we all
I
end up
agree.
being just Labradors running around in the park chasing
Yeah, and
balls.
how many like end of the world movies do they need to be created for to like warn us about this? You know what I mean? It's
Totally,
like seriously
100%,
though, and it's kind of a joke,
100%.
but at the same time, it's like I want to. And I'm that person, right? I want to use AI as a tool, and I think it is a tool. It is not a replacement. And some easy thought process for anybody listening to this is I got some great advice when AI first started coming out, and that's essentially 30, 50, 20.
Hmm.
30% you input, right? Do the heavy lifting up front. Have AI do a lot of the building, like you're talking about with your proposal, and then make sure
Yeah.
that you're 20% reading it. I have literally gotten emails from people that have the prompt still at the top. Like, dude, what are you doing? You know what I
I,
mean? Like,
I do as well. And there are some podcast booking agents that do that. So I just like to have a little bit of fun, and I'll just go back to them, and if a little bit of tongue in cheek to say, well, you know what? Obviously, you're a very credible agency. You don't even do your due diligence, um, and I'll just send a message. Regards, prompt.
I like it.
So, John, hey, it's been a great conversation. Greatly appreciate you coming on, certainly in the
Same.
evening in New York. For people listening to this, a couple of things. Last, where they can connect with you shortly, but I just if there was a parting gift, people listening to this who perhaps not so much are stuck, but are thinking about what's the next move, what's something that they can do, say in the short term, whether it be in the next 24 hours, 48 hours, next couple of days, to help them at least make some sort of step towards either closing a gap or making some sort of progress in the direction of where they
Mhm.
like to head. What would you give as parting advice slash guidance? I know it's a really open question and how long's a piece of string, but um, I'll leave you to finish up.
Yeah, I'll go through a six-stage process, and really it'll be the five stages and then six as a review essentially. But something that I teach people, there's two ways, and I'll talk about both. Um, get clear, understand your condition, own the cost, align your action, and then act. Take the first step. So clarity, condition, cost, align, act, and that fifth one, or that sixth one is adapt.
Hmm.
So get clear, truly understand what you're looking for and how does that attach to what you're trying to build. Understand the condition you're in right now. Do I have everything that I need? Do I need something? And then most important step in that is cost. Most people don't own the cost of their decisions. And where they get stuck is that they're stuck there. They don't
Mm.
understand what it's going to take. And once we come to grips with that, again, another Marine Corps lesson, right? Once we come to grips with that, man, it becomes easier. It becomes easier to make decisions when you've owned that potentially this could fail and you're ready for
Yeah.
it. And then the other one that really connects with people is that alignment. Seems like an unneeded step, but the reason I added into that six-step process is simply most people take that first action that has nothing to do with the other things. Right? It's like, no, no, no. But take 2 seconds and make sure the action you're about to take is in direct correlation with the
Yep.
decision that you want. All right. And then don't forget to adapt. Don't get too far into it after you've given it a fair shot. Don't be afraid to give yourself some grace. Say, this isn't working. I need to move on.
Yeah.
You know, that would be a really easy a mindset shift. I teach people that. I do workshops on it, but mostly what the whole point of that is I want to get people down to being able to do that in 90 seconds.
Mm.
It's intent, inspect, initiate to simplify it. Intent,
Nice.
inspect, initiate.
Love it. Love it. Great advice, mate. And it's a great way to close off what has been a phenomenal conversation. So thank you.
Agreed,
Um,
Darren.
People who would like to connect with you, as I did on LinkedIn, I'm going to say probably LinkedIn is a good place
Yeah.
to go. But where else can they connect with you? Or is that the best place?
Yeah, so LinkedIn's obviously a really good one. You and I connected on there. And I actually put out a lot of really great free videos on Instagram and YouTube talking about subjects that we talked about today. They're 100% for people. There's no sales pitches in there. It's just me talking. They're professionally made. I highly encourage that. That's Belleauwood_coaching and Belleauwood Coaching for YouTube. And then and if, I'm sure these will be in the links underneath or something, but
Yeah.
my website too is belleauwood.coach, not .com,
Ah,
belleauwood.coach.
perfect. Mate, I will put all of that in the show notes and highly recommend people reach out to you and plug into you because even though we're on the other sides of the world, mate, it seems like we're very connected in terms of our approach to to leadership and sales. So it's been an absolute pleasure. And again, thank you for jumping on in late evening. I know that you're still in the office there, so keep up the fantastic work. And people won't know this, but best of luck tomorrow as you go for your PCC accreditation with the ICF.
Thanks, Darren. Appreciate it. Hey, man, you've been an absolute pleasure to talk to. I love that we had a good, lighthearted conversation about very serious topics. I think that needs to happen more. So I appreciate you having me on and just being such a doing good work, man. So thank you.
Thanks, mate. Greatly appreciate it. All the best. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.